I'm Patrick Maliha, and this week on Totally Random Mouth Noise, I've got the giant of comedy, Mr. Brian Posehn. Brian.
Hi.
I'm 6'5".
What does that make me?
Tall. Hi, and welcome to Totally Random Mouth Noise. I'm your host, Patrick Maliha, and with me this week is comedy legend, Mr. Brian Posehn. Brian, thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate it. Thank you. So, Brian, recognizable face. People, they see you, they know who you are, but your name seems to be the thing where people will be like, this can't be the guy. How come nobody can pronounce your name properly?
I don't know. The crazy old German pronunciation. They just can't get their head around it. I'm thinking of changing my last name to that guy.
Brian, that guy?
Yeah, because that's what people fall to when they can't think of the name. Yeah. So that guy.
So when you're out on the street, I would imagine very recognizable face. Mm-hmm. You stand out in the crowd. How tall are you?
I'm 8'3".
That's a tall man.
Yeah, I'm big.
That's a tall man.
No, 6'6". I definitely do stick out. Yeah, I'm a giant. I think that's the official height.
Is that the official height for a giant?
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
That's where giants take over.
So if we were in like medieval times,
yes.
And King Edward is looking for somebody, and he's just like, "You must face my giant."
Right.
It is Brian of the Posehn.
Get the giant out of the hole, and I'd be like in some hole in a mountain, and then I'd come out and fight you.
Have you played a giant in any films or TV shows?
Everything I do. Yeah.
Now, I noticed you have an Iron Maiden shirt on underneath.
Yeah,
Are you a huge fan of the old classic rock? Or?
Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, favorite Iron Maiden song?
22 Acacia Avenue.
Oh, really?
It's classic. It's on Number of the Beast.
Yeah,
I'm a record,
Run to the Hills type of guy.
Oh,
That's
nice.
what I. So you obviously are a comedian, very successful stand-up comic.
Sure.
Come on.
Tell my mom.
You don't dress like this when you're not successful.
Yeah.
This is success. So why stand-up comedy? Why didn't you choose to get into something else? What was it about comedy that you said, that's for me?
Well, I was always a comedy fan as a kid, but I always kind of had the feeling that you had to be really, really special to do it. And I just kind of didn't think I was that guy. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
No, when I was a kid, and I was listening to Steve Martin and Freddie Prinze, they were larger than life to me, and I remember loving it, but never once thinking that was something that I could do. I was the funny kid. Yeah, for sure. And I remember it wasn't until college really that friends were like, "Hey, no, you can do that. You should try that. You're really funny." And I was always not just doing I was doing bits, but then it was more than that, and my friends just kind of forced me into that, into trying it. I just couldn't think about anything else. Once I found stand-up, I was obsessed.
Wow, so that's good. So, I guess it's like anything in life. When you find your passion, you give it a try, you go at it.
Yeah, for sure.
So there must have been at some point in time when you were doing stand-up and you said to yourself, you're like, "Oh, geez, did I make the right choice? What's going on here?"
Yeah, still.
Oh,
yeah. This morning.
This morning. Is really? So you still there's still times where you doubt yourself?
No. But yeah, there are times when you're auditioning and that kind of thing where it gets tough and you're like, should I just go work in a record store in a small town? Could I be happy doing that?
Do you think you could be happy? No. You'd be like, you're in some...
No, because now it would be like, "Hey, aren't you that guy?" "Yeah, it's $12.98. Yeah.
And you'd be like, "Is there a comedy club here in Boise somewhere?
Do you want this old Warrant CD or not? Get out of my store.
Right.
Get out of my store."
Oh, man. So that's all. Now, I have to ask you, because you're a bit of a political type of guy. You've got your views.
I am political, but it's a thing that I always feel especially compared to my friends, I don't know what I'm talking about compared to them. So I kind of keep quiet about it.
Right.
Mostly.
So what's a...
I hate the situation we're in. I don't really know the way out of it, though. A lot of my friends would be quick to offer up their solutions.
Right.
And I don't know. I just wish guys would stop dying. That's that's the core of it. That's
How do we get people to stop dying?
Yes. Just be nice to each other.
Just maybe that's what it is. Hugs instead of drugs. Fun instead of gun.
Yeah. Hugs and drugs.
Hugs and drugs?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you now? Are you a guy who gets high? Do you smoke pot?
Is that the thing on? Still?
I was gonna say. By the way,
are we just hanging out, two dudes?
We're just hanging out, two dudes. And by the way, any law enforcement agencies watching it, it's just a couple of comics. We're just joking around.
If you've seen my act,
Trying to appeal to the kids.
Yeah.
If I've seen your act.
And I'm in Vancouver, a place I like coming.
Nice. And you like coming?
I'll leave it like that.
Yeah, and of course you like coming to Vancouver, you're saying,
yes.
for the seawall. You like to jog, obviously
yes,
love to jog.
I'm a big jogger.
Have you ever jogged so much that you're like, oh man, I'm just going to sit at home and watch TV all day?
Yeah, only when I'm high. Yeah.
I was trying to avoid that. Are you getting that runner's high?
Yeah.
Do you have to run to do this? But so now, when you go back to the U.S., right, and you're touring and you're doing your thing, do you notice that there's a big difference between American crowds and Canadian crowds?
No, I haven't noticed one.
Yeah, because your stuff is more personal based.
Right.
It's more universal.
Right, and then mostly I'm playing on shows that draw a certain crowd. Like when I'm doing these alternative type shows, we're already drawing people that get it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
As opposed to people that just see a bright sign that says comedy, which is what you get at comedy clubs.
Right.
And I kind of, in my careers, I'm sort of going away from that and going to people that want to see me. You know what I mean?
People are going because they say, I want to see Brian Posehn. I know I pay.
Or my friends. I'll go on shows that they're on where I share, a sensibility, or I think I do, and so I fit in there. And so people that are going to see Patton Oswalt or Maria Bamford or whoever aren't gonna hate me. They're they're gonna get it, hopefully.
Who's this douchebag?
Yes.
So that's and it's interesting that you bring that up because we were chatting about this earlier, but you said that you have what you like to call your black T-shirt brigade. There's a very distinct Brian Posehn fan, and you say you can pick them out when you
Well, I appeal to a lot of people, but the guys that really
you do appeal to a lot of people. It's not just one demographic; it's a lot of people.
But the guys that really get me on another level are the guys that know what I really am like, and they've read about me or they've watched my act so much that they get it, and they're like me. They wear black T-shirts, like me. They play video games, like me. They collect comic books and horror movies, and those guys. Because sometimes I'll meet people where they're just so excited, and I think it's because they're seeing another version of them. You know what I mean? Like we've already bonded in their heads, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What I mean? And I'll see those guys, the black T-shirts and the pot tits, that'll come up to me and go, "Oh my God, Brian Posehn," and they don't have trouble pronouncing my name. They've studied it.
That's funny.
They know. They've corrected their friends. They've gone, it's not Posehn.
Excuse me, the name is Posehn.
Yes.
Germanic, thank you.
Yeah.
No, man. So, what, okay, I'm a video game and comic book geek as well. So what are Brian's top 3 video games, top 5 comic books?
Of all time, Halo 1 and 2 would be in there.
Yeah.
One of my favorite first-person shooters ever is GoldenEye. I spent a million hours on that game when that was around.
Me and my buddy had cost him his girlfriend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were playing it so much we didn't realize. I was in a stable relationship that became unstable, but I could save it. But his was on a foundation of mud and lies. But
Grand Theft Auto. When those games first came out, I spent way too many hours doing all the other little tasks.
What do you buy when you go Wednesday, new comic book day? What does Brian Posehn buy?
My favorite book has been that way for a couple of years now. Is Walking Dead. I love zombie books.
Movie. Or zombie book, I should say. Yeah.
And it's just great. The writing is amazing, and it's my favorite thing to pick up.
Did you pick up Marvel Zombies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was the same guy, Robert Kirkman, wrote that. So I'm a big fan of Kirkman.
That's awesome.
A couple of different guys, and it's weird now. I'm in that world because I wrote a comic book last year, and so I know all these guys now. The Last Christmas.
It's
Santa Claus After the Apocalypse, and you can get it every Christmas at your bookstores. But Yeah, it's going to be one of those things that people put in stockings for years.
And children
Santa
go
Claus fighting zombies.
crazy.
Yes, yes.
I remember when I heard that it was coming out, and I was just like, "What a brilliant idea! Santa Claus fighting zombies!" And
No,
I thought it was fun. I thought it was funny. I thought it was nice. It was interesting. So, would you say that's like one of the great things about having your level of fame? It allows you to kind of live out these dreams that all.
Definitely, that's one of my
have.
favorite things of what's happened in my life of getting to be in these different worlds, like the rock world, and getting to work with musicians and do, like I did a side project where I did a song with guys from Anthrax, and then being able to do comic books and be respected by those guys too. Like the comic book world, they've been really cool. Like all these other creators, like Brian Michael Bendis and Ed Brubaker.
Nice.
They're really supportive, and it's just been amazing. Because
So
they were already fans of my other stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of these guys, you'll find out that they were watching Mr. Show 10 years ago, and it happens with bands too, where I've been sort of welcomed into that world too, and it's to be a fan of both those things my whole life. And then also horror, being able to do Rob Zombie's movie, Devil's Rejects, all those three things, I'm living the dream. I feel like a Make-A-Wish kid sometimes, where, you know what I mean? Where it's like, is something bad happening to me? Because I'm getting to do all these things, like
Why
the
is there
only
a
thing,
kid?
like, oh, and you get to have sex with Wonder Woman. Then I go, all these things I've thought about my whole life, I'm finally getting to do.
God. That's so funny, and you're like, why do I have a cake? It's not my birthday.
Yeah.
Oh, this is terrible.
Bad news, Brian.
So now we touched on Mr. Show, and I have to get to that because people would be livid if I didn't ask you about that. Did you guys have any idea when you were putting that together? You're working on it. You're working with your friend Bob Odenkirk, and everybody's buddies, and you're doing your thing. Did you have any idea it was going to be that iconic? Did you say we're creating history? Did you?
I have to say, I don't think they did, but I did, because I was sort of an observer at first. For the first season, it was just 4 episodes, and they had written everything. Just Bob and David themselves had written it, and when they brought us in to read the scripts before they shot them, it was like myself and Bob's brother Bill and a couple other people in the room, a couple friends of ours, I think Jay Johnston and Paul F. that wound up being other writers. We were all brought in to just sort of listen to the stuff before they shot it. And I'd also seen, we'd been doing some of these scenes at live shows around LA, preparing for the show. So I knew, like, when I was watching these sketches, I was like, this is special. This is like, I definitely knew that. Like, this is pure funny. This is like on SCTV and Kids in the Hall level. And I, whether I get to be involved with this for a long time, these guys are going to be
Stars.
Well, not stars, but they're going to be loved by people that get it. I don't think I ever thought it would be mainstream, because
it's not.
It's not. It's not for that. But I definitely knew that the right people were going to think that this is something super special.
It is like the U.S. It is the U.S.'s version of Monty Python. Basically, it seems to be people.
Yeah, or kids.
Or Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
Canadian show, very popular as well. Some people in Canada may have heard of it. But so now, for yourself,
when we were starting that, I was obsessed with that show. Like
Kids in the Hall.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'm
Really?
friends with a lot of those guys. But but kind of through this world, I didn't know who they were before. Well, I knew who they were, but I wasn't friends with them until they saw us on Mr. Show. But
So you're doing Mr. Show, and then you're watching Kids in the Hall, and you're like, these guys are awesome.
Yeah, well, I was already a fan in San Francisco. I was watching. That's where I was living before I moved down to LA to start writing. And so I was just a big sketch fan already. I mean, I grew up on Monty Python and SCTV. Those are like my 2 favorite things. And then Saturday Night Live, the early stuff. The first couple of years I was obsessed with until it got unfunny. But I was obsessed with Kids in the Hall when we were, and that was kind of around when I started to, try my hand at actually writing sketches. But that was one of the big influences.
That's so amazing, because in Canada, I guess we have such a, we're almost good enough, a second place, not so bad type of attitude. And it's interesting when you hear somebody, is in San Fran and then they move down to LA and they're fascinated by the whole thing. What do you watch now? What is it that Brian Posehn loves to watch and be entertained by today?
Well, comedy's hard for me. I mean, there aren't a lot of comedy shows that can really make me laugh. It's South Park makes me laugh. Like I'll be giggling like an infant and just or screaming at the TV like I can't believe they did that. But there aren't a lot of shows that can do that for me. But
so and what do you do to relax when you want to unwind? Take a huge break from the video games and the comic books and the sex with the Wonder Women.
Yeah.
Like what do you do? What
no, that's how I relax. Is video games would be one of the key things, and a lot of times I can't get to it lately. I've been too busy. And it sounds corny, but my dogs like are my favorite things in the world besides my wife, and they're like when I'm stressed out or whatever, I'll just come home and do some dog hugging and then running around in the yard. And
how many dogs do you have?
I have two Basset Hounds, and
nice dogs.
They're a lot of fun. They're a good time.
And so what made you decide to get Basset Hounds? Why Basset Hounds?
Well, you're supposed to get dogs that look like you, right?
This poor man. Look at him.
The droopy.
Bowing down, sir.
Yeah.
Won't be me.
No, well, honestly, my wife saw this dog in a dog store, saw this puppy that was sitting there for a long time, and he was growing before her eyes as she kept going back and forth. It was in this mall, and he got old. He was in there at 8 weeks, and then a month and a half later, he's still sitting in there, and he's getting big for the cage. And she named him. Like she started calling him Ernie because she goes to this mall all the time, keeps seeing Ernie the Basset Hound, and she thought he looked like me. She's like, he looks depressed, and he's like rolls his eyes. He gets sarcastic, which is weird for a dog. You don't find cynical dogs that often. But
you're like, are you?
Basset Hounds look cynical. They look like they hate stuff.
Really?
They're just, God, I'm over it. This whole being a dog thing. It's for you guys, but
he's like, are you licking yourself? No.
Yeah.
Of course I am.
I had to get a dog that could also roll his eyes because that's one of my key things. I go to that a lot. It's one of my go-tos.
So, what is left for you? If you've got somebody comes in and they say something horrible has happened, you've only got X amount of time left. What's the one thing that, Brian, you would love to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet in life?
Wow. That's a really good question. There isn't a lot. I don't know. Maybe writing everything down. I've kind of, when I was a kid, I wanted to be Stephen King, and I never really did anything with that. But I also have a lot of stories of crazy things that happened to me, and it's something that I've been kind of fooling around with for years of, I'm eventually going to write everything down, everything that happened to me as a kid, like every awkward geek story I have, and then going through my life, all the crazy things that got to happen to me, meeting my favorite bands that I worshipped for 20 years, and that kind of stuff, and I just like to write it all out eventually. I think if I know I can.
Anytime. You could get down.
Yeah. But that's something I still want to do at some point.
That's you know what? That's wonderful because it's funny because as myself, as somebody on the outside looking in, you say that you would love to write and do all this stuff, but then I look and I see that you were working on, Mr. Show, you're doing that, and also, you've written the comic book and you're doing that. So it seems as though, you're starting to kind of do that. Maybe you never personally fought zombies, but I'm sure somewhere in there it would have happened. So, and also I want to ask you, have you ever bombed in Canada? Has there ever been a time has Brian Posehn ever bombed on stage in Canada?
No, not really, but I'm rough on myself. Last year I had a set that because all the other sets were so great, but last year I did one at a comedy club where I was like, that was work. But I didn't bomb.
Right.
But I actually had to earn my money,
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, I felt myself going, okay, I got to pull out of autopilot here and actually save this thing.
Wow, and I'm sure it was a great show.
It turned out okay. But it's been a while since I bombed, but I'm sure it's possible.
So now, what would be? You're going to write your story. You're gonna write your story, and it's gonna be all the crazy things that have happened to you. What's story number one? What's the first story? Crazy thing that happened to Brian Posehn.
Well, I think if I was starting from a kid, you know, I would talk about when I first kind of realized I had a sense of humor. I think I would go back to that.
And when was that?
When I was real young, and this is more like what I've been told by my mom and by other people who've watched me grow up, but I kind of got things at an early age, you know, and would like kind of twist things, and I would lie, I would punch up stories. I wasn't always lying, but that was a big thing that my mom remembers.
I need to spritz this up.
Seriously, something would happen, and I would want to retell the story, but I would go, well, that ending is not nearly funny enough. What if my grandmother would have said this at the end? And that's, you know, now that's the button. We've got it, you know. I would write bits, basically, and I didn't know I was doing that.
And how old were you, like, about? How old?
Real young. I remember starting to fabricate things at like 5 or twist things and or getting wordplay at that really young age and kind of spinning things to make them funny.
See, and it's interesting because if you today were an accomplished pianist, or say you were a math genius, I'm sure that you would say, at the age of 5 or 6, I played the piano and I was very good at it, or I was great with quadratic equations. But
with me, I was doing puns and wordplay and that sort of thing.
And I'm sure.
And memorizing jokes from joke books, I was obsessed.
And how did your parents feel about that? Did they frown upon that? Did they?
My mom just always thought I was a funny, weird kid, but didn't think there was a future in it, you know.
Right, she's like, you're going to tell jokes for a living?
Right.
Oh, man. Well, that's absolutely awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brian. I truly appreciate the interview. Thank you very much. I'm Patrick Maliha, and this week I've been interviewing Brian Posehn. Thank you very much. And there will be more totally random mouth noise after this.